Captain Nathan Cole sat in the command chair of the UN's Resolute, his eyes locked on the sprawling nebula outside the viewing port. It was hard to believe that this colorful cloud of gas was once a battleground, a graveyard where hundreds of ships had been reduced to space dust, swallowed by the endless void. The echoes of war lingered here, though Cole's ship was no warrior. The Resolute was one of Earth's oldest ships still in service, a relic of an era when humanity's first steps into the galactic stage were marked by caution, exploration, and a healthy dose of naivety. To the Kalari Dominion and the Vorlon Swarm, two of the galaxy's most powerful forces, humanity's ships were little more than toys. Still, here they were, on the edge of disputed territory between these two ancient powers, both of whom had been locked in a war that stretched beyond anything a human mind could fully comprehend. 800 millennia of conflict, and there were still no victors, only survivors. "Captain, approaching the coordinates," said Ensign Mathers, his voice calm, but tinged with the quiet concern of someone who knew their ship was out of its league. "Good," Cole replied. "Slow to sublight and keep us at a safe distance from the surface." A deep rumble vibrated through the Resolute as its engines throttled back, and the stars outside slowed to a crawl. Ahead of them was a barren planet, its surface scarred and cratered by ancient impacts, with a thin atmosphere barely capable of sustaining life. It was a dead world, nothing more than a husk left behind after a battle that had ended tens of thousands of years ago. But it was what the planet hid beneath its crust that had caught their attention. "We're picking up the signal again," said Lieutenant Abrams from the communications console. His fingers danced over the controls as the alien frequencies hummed through the bridge. "It's faint, but it's there." Cole stood, pacing toward the viewport as if getting closer would help him see whatever ancient secret lay beneath the surface. "It's old," Abrams continued. "Predates anything we've ever seen. Could be Vorlon, maybe even Kalari, but I've never seen anything like it." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Cole said, though his curiosity was piqued. "Prepare a landing party. I want to get a closer look." The crew exchanged glances. They knew the risks. This sector was contested by both the Vorlon and the Kalari, and while the Resolute had remained undetected so far, there was no guarantee they would stay that way. "Sir," Lieutenant Torres, the ship's weapons officer, spoke up. "We're sitting on a powder keg here. If the Kalari or Vorlon catch us, they'll tear this ship apart. It's a rust bucket by their standards." Cole nodded. He knew she was right. The Resolute was far from a top-tier combat vessel. Its armor was outdated, its weapons little more than deterrents in a galaxy ruled by warships that could obliterate entire planets. But there was something about this mission, something about the signal, that gnawed at the back of his mind. "I know, Lieutenant, but we didn't come all this way to turn around now." He turned to Ensign Mathers. "Take us down to low orbit. Let's see what's down there." As the Resolute descended toward the planet, the surface came into clearer focus. It was a wasteland, pocked with craters and the skeletal remains of long-forgotten ships, their twisted hulls half buried in the dust. "Captain, we're picking up more than just the signal now," Abrams said, his voice growing more urgent. "I'm detecting power signatures, and they're active." "Active?" Cole narrowed his eyes. "From what?" Abrams hesitated before replying. I'm not sure, sir. But whatever it is, it's old, very old." The ship shuddered as the Resolute entered orbit, and Cole felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They were venturing into the unknown again. But that was part of the job. Exploration meant risk, and risk often led to discovery. "Prepare the landing party," Cole ordered, his voice firm. "We're going down." The small shuttle, a weathered craft that had seen better days, detached from the Resolute and descended through the planet's thin atmosphere. Cole sat at the front, staring out at the barren landscape below. The twisted wreckage of long-abandoned ships dotted the horizon, remnants of battles lost to history. "Captain, we're nearing the source of the signal," said Lieutenant Abrams, who had insisted on coming along. "It's stronger down here." The shuttle's engines hummed as it touched down, kicking up a cloud of dust. The door opened with a hiss, and the landing party, Cole, Abrams, and 3 others, stepped out into the eerie silence of the planet. The signal was close now, pulsing through their handheld scanners like the heartbeat of something long forgotten. "Over here," Abrams called, pointing toward a massive structure half buried in the ground. It was ancient, its surface covered in strange, angular symbols that glowed faintly in the twilight. "What the hell is that?" one of the crew muttered. "Something we weren't meant to find," Cole replied, his eyes scanning the alien architecture. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Cole's heart raced. "Everyone back to the shuttle, now." Before anyone could move, a massive fissure opened in the earth, and the landing party was thrown to the ground. As the dust settled, a towering monolith rose from the fissure, its surface glowing with a brilliant, otherworldly light. Abrams stared in awe. "That's impossible." Cole gritted his teeth, his mind racing. Whatever they had just unearthed, it wasn't dormant anymore. And now, they weren't the only ones who knew about it. "Captain," Abrams whispered, staring at his scanner. "We've got company. Vorlon warships. They're closing in fast." Cole cursed under his breath. The galaxy's deadliest predators were headed their way, and all they had was a weak, ancient ship and a mystery that might just be their undoing. But there was no turning back now. Back on the Resolute, alarms blared as the Vorlon ships appeared on the edge of the system. The crew scrambled into action, but they all knew the truth. Against the Vorlon, they stood no chance in a straight fight. Cole's mind raced. He had to find a way out, something, anything, that could turn this disaster into an opportunity. As the Resolute struggled to power up its defenses, the artifact they had unearthed began to pulse with energy, sending waves of light into the sky. Cole felt it before he saw it, a deep, resonant hum that shook him to his core. The artifact was alive, and whatever it was doing, it was about to change the galaxy forever. The Resolute's engines roared to life, vibrating through the hull as the Vorlon ships closed in. Captain Nathan Cole gripped the arms of his chair, his eyes scanning the tactical readout displayed on the console in front of him. The hologram flickered, showing the positions of their enemies, 3 Vorlon raiding vessels, their angular forms speeding like arrows through the blackness of space. Their signature red trails left an ominous glow on the display, a reminder of the firepower humanity's weakest ship was up against. "Lieutenant Torres, status report," Cole barked, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "We're outmatched, Captain," Torres replied, her tone sharp and professional, even as her hands flew over her controls. "Vorlon ships are faster, better armored, and armed with particle cannons that'll tear us apart if we get within range." Cole's eyes narrowed. How long until they closed the distance? 5 minutes at most. He didn't have 5 minutes, not with a ship this old and a crew already pushed to their limits. Every second counted, and right now, they were facing annihilation. "Divert all power to shields and engines," Cole ordered. "Prepare evasive maneuvers." The Resolute lurched, its aging system straining under the sudden burst of activity. The hum of the engines grew louder, an uncomfortable whine echoing through the bridge as the ship accelerated. On the viewport, the planet loomed larger, its barren surface a maze of shadows and craters. They had only one option: use the planet's terrain as cover and hope the Vorlon ships wouldn't risk low orbit. "Helm, bring us down to the surface," Cole said, his tone firm. "We're going to make ourselves harder to hit." Ensign Mathers nodded, his expression focused as he guided the ship closer to the planet's atmosphere. The hull shuddered, metal groaning under the strain as they descended, the darkness of space giving way to the pale gray of the planet's thin atmosphere. "Captain, they're adjusting course," Abrams called out. "They're not backing off." Of course they weren't. The Vorlon weren't known for restraint or caution. They were predators, relentless and ruthless, and they had smelled blood. "Torres, deploy chaff and launch countermeasures. Let's make them work for it." Metallic canisters shot from the Resolute, scattering reflective particles that glittered against the dark sky like fireworks. The chaff disrupted enemy targeting systems, and for a moment the Vorlon ships hesitated, their sleek forms weaving through the debris. "Captain, they're splitting up," Torres warned. "One's moving to intercept above us, the other two are flanking." "Just as expected," Cole muttered. "Vorlon tactics, they're trying to box us in." The Resolute dipped lower, skimming the planet's surface. Dust and rocks sprayed up in the wake of their descent, a whirlwind of debris kicked up by their thrusters. The jagged landscape rushed past, a blur of ancient craters and fractured canyons. If they could get low enough, they might lose the Vorlon for a few precious moments. Cole's gaze flicked to the tactical display again. The monolith they had activated back on the surface now pulsed with a furious energy signature, its glowing veins visible from orbit. The thing was alive, and whatever it was doing, it had drawn the attention of their enemies like a beacon. The planet, once an abandoned relic of past wars, was now the epicenter of a conflict that had gone unseen for millennia. "Captain, the artifact," Abrams said, breaking the tense silence. "It's emitting some kind of energy wave. I think it's—" A massive pulse of light erupted from the monolith, rippling across the sky like a shockwave. The Resolute shuddered violently, and the tactical display blinked out momentarily before stabilizing. "What the hell was that?" Cole demanded. "Unknown, sir," Abrams said, frantically checking his instruments. "But whatever it is, the Vorlon ships just got caught in it." Cole's eyes snapped back to the viewport. Sure enough, the nearest Vorlon ship, now hovering above them, was veering off course. Its engines sputtered, trails of blue and red plasma leaking into the atmosphere. The other two ships hesitated, their maneuvers growing erratic as they adjusted their formation. "Looks like they're having engine trouble," Torres said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Or worse," Cole muttered, his mind racing. "The artifact must be interfering with their systems." "Sir, if we can get them to fly close to the monolith again, we might." Cole didn't need to hear the rest. He understood what Abrams was getting at. The artifact was a weapon, and it was targeting anything that came too close. That explained the ancient power readings, the faint signals. The monolith was designed to defend itself. But the Vorlon weren't the only ones in its range. "Mathers, get us out of here, now!" Cole shouted. "Full power to engines." The Resolute surged forward, its thrusters roaring as it shot toward the mountains on the planet's horizon. The ground below blurred, the ship narrowly avoiding rocky spires and jagged outcroppings. Behind them, the monolith's light grew brighter, sending out another pulse that rippled through the sky. Cole glanced back at the tactical display, watching as the Vorlon ships struggled to maintain formation. The closest vessel, now caught directly in the monolith's energy wave, spiraled out of control, its engines erupting into flames. A moment later, it plummeted toward the ground, crashing into the planet's surface with a blinding explosion. "Direct hit," Torres reported, her voice tight. "One down." "Two more to go," Cole said, his grip tightening on the armrest. "But we won't get lucky twice." "Captain, incoming transmission," Abrams interrupted. "It's from the Kalari." The Kalari, allies or enemies, depending on the day. Cole's eyes narrowed as the screen flickered to life, revealing the image of a Kalari officer, his features sharp and eyes cold. Garen Voss. Cole had encountered him before, always under tense circumstances. "Captain Cole," Voss said, his tone formal but edged with urgency. "You have something of great interest to both the Kalari Dominion and the Vorlon Swarm. That artifact, its power, belongs to us." "We don't have time for this, Voss," Cole replied, cutting through the diplomat's posturing. "We've got Vorlon ships breathing down our necks, and if you want a piece of the action, you'd better get here fast." "You misunderstand, Captain," Voss said, his expression unchanging. "The Kalari fleet is already en route, but I suggest you do not attempt to use the artifact. It is beyond your comprehension and your control." "Is that a threat?" Cole asked, his tone cold. "It's a warning," Voss replied. "The artifact was designed to wipe out entire fleets, but it requires a sacrifice, one that no human vessel can afford to make." Cole's eyes flicked to Abrams, who nodded grimly. "He's not wrong, sir. The energy output required is staggering. But Cole's mind was already turning over the options. They had two choices: flee and risk getting torn apart by both Vorlon and Kalari ships, or use the artifact and gamble that whatever cost it required was one they could survive. "We'll see about that," Cole said, ending the transmission. "Sir, what's the plan?" Torres asked, her eyes locked onto him. Cole stared out at the planet's surface, the monolith still glowing like a beacon of ancient power. "We're going to use it." "But—" "I know," Cole said, cutting her off. "It's risky, but it's our only chance. We need to draw the remaining Vorlon ships close enough, and then we'll activate the artifact." The crew's eyes widened, but there was no hesitation. They had signed up for this, to explore, to risk their lives in the name of discovery and survival. The fact that they were fighting a battle millennia in the making didn't matter. They trusted Cole, and that was enough. "Prepare the override codes," Cole ordered, "and get ready to initiate manual activation." The Resolute turned sharply, its thrusters flaring as it flew back toward the monolith. The Vorlon ships, now reassembled into a tight formation, closed in, their weapons charging. The display flashed red as torpedoes locked onto their signature. "Mathers, keep us steady. We've got one shot at this." The monolith loomed ahead, its pulsing light growing blindingly bright. Cole's fingers hovered over the controls, sweat beading on his brow as the ship flew directly into the heart of its energy wave. Every instinct screamed at him to turn away, to run, but he held firm. "Torpedoes incoming," Torres shouted. Cole slammed the controls, and the Resolute banked sharply. The monolith's energy pulsed, and in an instant, the sky lit up as the torpedoes detonated prematurely, their explosion feeding into the artifact's power. "Now!" Cole roared. The ship's systems synced with the monolith's core, and for a split second, everything went dark. Then, the planet itself seemed to awaken. For a brief, agonizing moment, Captain Cole felt the Resolute become an extension of the monolith's power. The ship's systems buzzed and hummed in synchrony with the ancient relic, its circuits flooded with alien data streams and signals that no human had ever seen before. His display flickered, showing ancient symbols, some familiar, others utterly foreign, as the energy coursed through the vessel's hull. The monolith's power was not just immense, it was ancient, primal. Cole could feel it resonating in his bones, as if the entire planet, once a battleground for forgotten civilizations, was alive and aware of their presence. The air felt charged, and the ship's metal frame vibrated, barely holding together under the strain. "Hold your positions," Cole commanded, his voice rising over the noise. The bridge crew remained fixed, eyes glued to their controls. Abrams was frantically typing commands, trying to stabilize their shields. Torres monitored the incoming Vorlon ships, her face taut as the enemy closed in, weapons ready. The Vorlon ships formed a pincer formation, the two remaining vessels moving with ruthless precision. Their particle cannons powered up, casting a faint blue glow across the tactical display. It was clear they had orders to eliminate the Resolute, no matter the cost. "Targets locked, Captain," Torres reported. "They're preparing to fire." "Hold our course," Cole replied, his voice a controlled whisper. "Keep us in the monolith's field." Ensign Mathers, sweat trickling down his forehead, kept his hands steady on the controls, maneuvering the Resolute through the turbulent air currents and the cascading waves of energy emanating from the monolith. It was like flying through a storm made of pure light and fury. "They're closing fast," Abrams said. "Shields at maximum." The Vorlon ships unleashed their fury. Blinding lances of energy shot from their cannons, streaking through the sky like lightning. The Resolute's shields flared, absorbing the initial impacts, but the sheer force rattled the entire ship. Sparks flew from the consoles, and warning lights flared as systems across the board went critical. "Brace for impact," Cole shouted. The bridge rocked as another volley of fire struck them. The shields held, but barely. The tactical display showed their energy reserves dropping fast. Another few hits, and the shields would collapse entirely. But Cole's eyes were fixed on the monolith. They were almost there, seconds away from reaching the epicenter of its power. "Captain, shields at 15%, Torres shouted, gripping her station as the ship shook violently. "Prepare to initiate manual override," Cole ordered, his gaze hard. "This is our moment." The Resolute pushed forward, engines roaring as they sped directly toward the glowing artifact. The Vorlon ships continued their assault, closing in from above and below, firing relentlessly. The first of the Vorlon vessels broke through the energy field and swooped low, its cannons glowing hot as it prepared for a close-range strike. But the monolith responded. A surge of energy exploded outward, brighter than anything Cole had ever seen. The pulse engulfed the first Vorlon ship, its shield systems flaring to life as the ancient power overwhelmed them. For a split second, the Vorlon vessel held steady, its armor shimmering in the radiance. Then it was torn apart, disintegrating into a cloud of debris that scattered across the planet's surface. "One down," Torres called out, her tone a mix of adrenaline and disbelief. The second Vorlon ship, now faced with the destruction of its counterpart, hesitated. Its pilot clearly realized the danger, but it was too late. The monolith's energy field expanded further, locking onto the second vessel's signature. "Sir, they're trying to pull back," Abrams shouted. "Too late for them," Cole said, his voice low and cold. "Activate the artifact, now." The Resolute systems synced fully with the monolith's core, and the ship's lights dimmed as the energy transfer surged to maximum. The monolith's veins glowed a deep crimson, and tendrils of energy shot out, latching onto the second Vorlon ship. Its hull buckled under the pressure, metal warping as the vessel struggled to break free. Then, the monolith's power spiked. The Vorlon ship erupted, splitting apart in a violent explosion that sent shockwaves through the atmosphere. Cole watched as pieces of the enemy vessel rained down, their fragments scattering like shards of glass. The tactical display lit up with the chaotic aftermath, showing the immediate threat was neutralized. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Cole didn't share their relief, at least not yet. "Status report," he demanded, keeping his tone sharp. "Both Vorlon ships are down, sir," Torres confirmed, her face still lit with adrenaline. "No additional contacts in range." "Captain, our energy reserves are critically low," Abrams warned. "The artifact is draining our systems faster than anticipated." Cole nodded, his mind already working through the next steps. They had survived the Vorlon assault, but they were far from safe. The monolith's energy output was immense, and whatever power it wielded, it was still active and hungry. "Shut down the connection," Cole ordered. "Disengage our systems from the monolith." Abrams moved to comply, but his console flared with warning signals. "I can't, sir. It's not responding." "What do you mean?" Cole asked, turning sharply. "It's like the artifact has taken over our systems," Abrams replied, his hands moving faster. "It's overriding every shutdown protocol." The realization hit Cole like a punch to the gut. The monolith wasn't just a weapon, it was a machine with its own intelligence, and it had latched onto the Resolute. They had awakened something ancient, and now it was using them as a conduit. "Damn it," Cole muttered. "Mathers, divert all power to engines, get us out of its range." The engines flared, but the ship struggled to pull away. It felt like they were being held in place by invisible chains, the monolith's power surging through their systems and gripping the ship's frame. The lights flickered, and the ship groaned under the strain. "Captain, we're losing control," Mathers said, his voice tight with strain. "It's pulling us in." Cole's mind raced. They had one chance, one desperate move. "All hands, prepare for emergency warp jump. We need to break free of the gravity well." "But, Captain, if we jump inside the field?" "We don't have a choice, Lieutenant," Cole snapped. "If we stay here, we're finished." The crew moved with precision, even as the ship's systems flickered under the strain. The warp drive charged, its power building up slowly, painfully slowly. Outside the viewport, the monolith's light grew blinding, its energy wrapping around the Resolute like tendrils of fire. Come on, Cole muttered, his eyes fixed on the warp indicators. Drive charge to 70%, 80%. Abrams counted off, his voice a lifeline in the chaos. "Captain, it's now or never," Torres shouted as another pulse of energy surged from the monolith, rattling the ship's hull. "Engage warp drive," Cole yelled. The ship's engines screamed as the warp drive activated, and space around the Resolute folded inward, the planet's surface distorting in a kaleidoscope of light. The monolith's energy pulsed again, and for a moment it felt like they were being torn apart. The bridge shuddered, alarms blaring as the fabric of space buckled. And then, blackness. Silence enveloped the bridge as the Resolute emerged from warp space. The crew sat, breath held, waiting for the tactical display to come back online. Slowly, the stars reappeared, and the readings stabilized. Cole exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had made it. "Status," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "Systems, holding," Abrams reported, relief flooding his tone. "We're clear of the monolith's range." "Damage report?" "Shields at 5%, hull integrity at 62%. Warp drive is offline, needs full recalibration." Cole leaned back in his chair, the tension finally easing. They had escaped, but the reality of their situation was grim. They were stranded, low on resources, and cut off from any reinforcements. And the artifact, now far behind, still pulsed with its ancient, inscrutable power. But they had survived, and now he had questions about what they had awakened and what it meant for humanity's future. "Set a course for the nearest human outpost," Cole said. "We're going to need help." And deep in the void, the monolith watched, its energy rippling as it calculated its next move. The Resolute drifted through the void, its engines silent as it coasted away from the gravitational influence of the ancient planet and the monolith it had barely escaped. Cole sat in the command chair, staring out at the stars, his mind racing with the implications of what they had just experienced. The crew worked in silence, the only sounds the soft beeping of the consoles as they ran diagnostics and patched systems. The ship's hull bore scars from the battle, a testament to its resilience and the crew's skill. Yet, as Cole scanned the tactical display, he felt the weight of uncertainty settle in. They were alone in a vast, hostile galaxy, with limited power and no way to contact human command. He turned his attention to the artifact. Even at this distance, he could feel its presence, a lingering sensation in his gut like a distant hum. What they had activated was far more than just an ancient relic. It was a weapon, or maybe something worse. But the question that gnawed at him was simple: why had it responded to them? "Captain, our navigational systems are back online, but comms are still down," Abrams reported. "No sign of any human outposts within range. We're off the charts." "Figures," Cole muttered. "What's our power status?" "Barely enough to keep life support and thrusters operational," Torres replied. "We might manage a short hop if we reroute everything to the FTL drive, but it'll be risky." Cole considered their options. They could try a short warp, but if they miscalculated, they might end up even farther from known space. Alternatively, they could stay put, risking another encounter with the Vorlons or worse, whatever other threats lurked in this uncharted region. "We need to buy time to repair the ship," Cole said finally. "Plot a course to that asteroid field we spotted earlier. We'll use it as cover while we figure out our next move." "Aye, sir," Mathers responded, adjusting the ship's trajectory. The Resolute turned, and its engines flared to life, pushing the ship toward the shadowy outline of the asteroid belt visible against the backdrop of distant stars. The field loomed large as they approached, a chaotic swirl of rocks and debris. Some of the asteroids were as large as cities, their surfaces marked with craters from ancient impacts. Others were smaller, drifting lazily like the remnants of shattered moons. Cole watched as Mathers maneuvered the ship through the shifting mass, skillfully avoiding collisions. "Set us down on that large one, there," Cole directed, pointing to a massive asteroid with a relatively flat surface. It was a gamble. If the Vorlons or anyone else were tracking them, the field would provide some cover. But it also meant hiding in a place where any wrong move could spell disaster. The Resolute touched down with a shudder, its landing struts digging into the surface. The ship's systems powered down to minimal levels, leaving only the faint glow of emergency lights to light the bridge. "Everyone, take a breather," Cole said. "We're not out of this yet, but we'll need to be ready if anything comes our way." He glanced around the bridge, noting the tension in his crew's faces. They had been through hell, and the toll was evident, sweat, grime, and exhaustion etched into their expressions. But they were still focused, still ready for whatever came next. "Torres, get me a report on the monolith signal, see if it's still active," he ordered. "Abrams, I want full diagnostics on all critical systems. Mathers, you're on monitoring duty. Anything moves out there, I want to know." The crew moved swiftly, falling into their roles with practiced precision. Torres was the first to respond, her console lighting up as she accessed long-range sensors. "Captain, I'm still picking up traces of the energy field, but it's fluctuating," she said, frowning. "It's like the monolith is cycling through different phases. Something's changing." "What kind of changes?" Cole asked, leaning forward. "Hard to say, sir. But whatever it is, it's not stable. I'm reading massive energy spikes, some of them strong enough to warp local space-time." Cole's eyes narrowed. "It's still active, and if those readings are correct, it's becoming more volatile." Abrams looked up from his station. "Captain, if the monolith destabilizes, it could have catastrophic effects. We're talking about a chain reaction that could wipe out everything within light years. And it's reacting to us." Cole's voice was grim. "It started when we approached, and it hasn't stopped. Whatever this thing is, it's linked to us now." He knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. The monolith's power was a magnet, a beacon that would attract every scavenger, warship, and explorer in the sector. And if the Vorlons realized what they had unleashed, they would return in force, determined to either claim the weapon or destroy it. Cole's hands tightened on the armrest of his chair. They needed a plan, a way to either shut down the monolith or break its connection to their ship. But without more data, they were shooting in the dark. As he mulled over their options, Torres' console beeped urgently. "Captain, I've got multiple signals incoming. Vorlon signatures, 3 ships, closing fast." "Damn it," Cole cursed. "They must have tracked us after all. All hands, prepare for battle stations." The crew scrambled into action, despite the exhaustion that tugged at them. The lights flickered as power was rerouted to shields and weapon systems. The Resolute lifted off the asteroid's surface, thrusters engaging as it maneuvered into a defensive position within the asteroid field. The Vorlon ships emerged from the shadow of the asteroid field, their sleek forms cutting through the darkness. Their weapons powered up, and Cole could see the blue glow of their particle cannons reflected on his tactical display. "Hold steady," Cole commanded. "Let's use the asteroids as cover." The Resolute darted between the massive rocks, weaving a chaotic path to avoid the incoming fire. The Vorlons followed, their ships agile as they navigated the debris. Explosions echoed through the void as stray shots impacted asteroids, sending plumes of rock and dust spiraling into the black. "Target the lead ship," Cole ordered. "We take out their command, and the others might back off." The Resolute's guns lit up, a barrage of plasma rounds streaking toward the lead Vorlon ship. The enemy vessel dodged, but one shot clipped its starboard wing, sending it into a spin. Cole seized the opportunity. "Hit it again, focus fire." The crew responded, and the Resolute's cannons unleashed another salvo. This time, the shot struck true, breaching the Vorlon's shields and tearing through its hull. The ship shuddered, flames and debris spilling into space as it spiraled out of control and collided with a nearby asteroid, exploding in a brilliant flash. "Scratch one," Torres called out. But the victory was short-lived. The remaining 2 Vorlon ships adjusted their tactics, splitting off to flank the Resolute from both sides. Cole could see their weapons charging, ready to fire in a coordinated strike. "Evasive maneuvers," Cole shouted. "Brace for impact." The Resolute swerved, dodging the initial volley, but a direct hit rocked the ship, sending sparks flying across the bridge. The impact jarred Cole, and he gripped his chair as the lights flickered again, alarms blaring. "Shields down to 20%, Abrams reported. Cole's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and low on power. But they still had one advantage, the monolith. If he could lure the Vorlons close enough, its energy might react the way it did before, neutralizing the threat. "Mathers, bring us around. Head straight for the monolith." "Captain, are you sure?" Mathers hesitated, but only for a second. "Aye, sir." Adjusting course. The Resolute veered sharply, engines flaring as it dove back toward the planet's surface. The Vorlon ships followed, their cannons firing, but the asteroids provided some cover, allowing the Resolute to evade. As they closed in on the monolith, its light grew brighter, the crimson veins pulsing with increasing intensity. The air around them vibrated with a sheer power emanating from the artifact. Cole could feel the tension in his crew. They knew the risk they were taking. "Captain, the energy field is spiking again," Torres warned. "If we get too close." "We have no choice," Cole shouted. "This is our only shot. Mathers, get us within range and prepare to pull back at maximum thrust." The Resolute dived, engines roaring as it skirted the planet's atmosphere, flying dangerously close to the monolith. The Vorlon ships, undeterred, followed, weapons blazing. As they entered the energy field, their shields flared, and Cole saw the monolith's power react. "Now," he yelled. "Break off." The Resolute pulled up sharply, engines straining as it tried to escape the gravity well. Behind them, the monolith's energy surged, lashing out like tendrils of lightning. The energy from the monolith crackled through the void, twisting and rippling like a living storm. The Vorlon ships, caught in its grip, struggled to maneuver, their shields flaring as the tendrils of energy latched onto their hulls. Cole watched the display, heart pounding, as arcs of crimson electricity danced across the enemy vessels, tearing through their defenses like paper. One of the Vorlon ships tried to break free, its engines roaring to full power. But it was too late. Energy coiled around it, and with a flash, the ship was ripped apart, fragments scattering in every direction. The second ship, caught directly in the center of the blast, flared like a dying star before disintegrating into a cloud of molten debris. "Confirmed kills," Torres called out, relief mixed with astonishment. "Both Vorlon vessels destroyed." Cole felt the tension in his chest ease, but only slightly. "Good work, everyone. But stay sharp. That was just one wave, and the monolith is becoming more unstable." The Resolute veered away from the planet's surface, escaping the reach of the monolith's energy field. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, but the crew had done their job, everything held together. Cole's eyes flicked back to the view outside the window, where the crimson light of the monolith flickered like an ominous beacon. "Captain, the monolith's energy readings are escalating," Abrams said, his voice grim. "If this keeps up, it's going to blow, and the blast radius will be catastrophic." Cole felt a surge of urgency. The monolith's power wasn't just a weapon, it was a time bomb. "What's the estimate?" "At this rate, minutes, maybe less." Cole clenched his fists. The Vorlons had sent scouts. The main fleet wouldn't be far behind. If they arrived before the monolith detonated, they might unleash its power to devastating effect. And if it went off on its own, the blast could set off a chain reaction, wiping out everything within the system. "We need to shut it down," he said, voice firm. "Somehow, we have to sever whatever link it has with our ship." Abrams glanced up, eyes wide. "Captain, are you suggesting?" "Yes." Cole's voice was resolute. "We're going back in." The bridge fell silent. The crew exchanged wary glances, but no one questioned the order. They had come this far, and they knew the stakes. Cole felt a surge of pride for his team, their resilience and loyalty unwavering even in the face of impossible odds. "Mathers, plot a course for the monolith. Torres, get ready to scan for any weaknesses in its structure. We're going to find a way to shut it down manually." The Resolute turned once more, its engines burning bright as it dove back toward the planet. The surface loomed large, and the monolith's light grew blinding, its energy flaring as if sensing their approach. The air felt thick, charged with power. As they closed in, Cole felt the pressure in his skull intensify, the hum resonating louder. "Easy now," he muttered, his hands gripping the armrests. "Let's not trigger it prematurely." The Resolute descended, its trajectory bringing it closer to the monolith's core. The crimson light bathed the ship, and for a moment everything seemed to slow. The tendrils of energy snaked out again, reaching toward the ship, probing like the curious limbs of a creature. "Shields at maximum," Abrams said, his fingers flying over the console. The energy lashed against the Resolute's shields, the impact making the hull shudder. Alarms blared, but Cole kept his focus. They were close now, within reach of the monolith's surface, where the runes carved into its structure glowed with intense heat. "Captain, I'm detecting a central point where the energy converges," Torres reported. "It's like a control node. If we can disrupt it, we might be able to shut the whole thing down." "Perfect," Cole said, eyes fixed on the target. "Abrams, get a team ready for Eva. We're taking this fight outside." The bridge was a whirlwind of activity as Abrams organized the team, and within minutes they were suited up, ready for the mission. Cole donned his helmet, the visor's heads-up display flickering to life, outlining the monolith's surface and the target area. His breath came in steady rhythms, the familiar tension of combat surging through him. "Everyone clear on the objective?" he asked over the comms. "Affirmative," Abrams replied. "We disable the node and sever the link." "Good. Let's move." The airlock cycled open, and Cole felt the rush of cold as he and the team stepped into the void. The monolith loomed before them, its surface a maze of glowing veins and ancient carvings. The energy it emitted crackled through the air, making his suit's sensors spike. Cole could feel the power of it, like standing at the edge of a lightning storm. They activated their thrusters, gliding toward the monolith's surface. As they neared, Cole's HUD highlighted the target, a cluster of conduits that pulsed with energy, converging at a central node. It was like the heart of the structure, the point where all its power was focused. "Torres, status?" Cole asked. "I've synced your coordinates," she replied. "I'm reading intense fluctuations in that area. Whatever you do, do it fast." "Copy that." The team landed on the monolith's surface, magnetic boots locking into place. The vibrations beneath their feet were like a living heartbeat, the pulse of energy resonating through the structure. Cole moved forward, leading the way as they approached the node. The heat radiating from the veins was almost unbearable, and his suit's temperature alarms flashed red. "Brace yourselves," he warned. "This thing's not going to go down without a fight." Abrams and the others spread out, placing charges along the conduits. Cole worked quickly, setting up the final detonator near the core. The energy spikes grew more intense, the runes flaring like molten lava as the monolith reacted to their presence. "Charges set," Abrams reported. "On your command, Captain." Cole took a deep breath, his finger hovering over the trigger. The moment they detonated the charges, there was no going back. "All units, prepare for rapid exfil. 3, 2, 1. Fire." The charges went off in a blinding flash, and the node erupted in a burst of energy. The monolith's surface rippled, and the veins of light flickered violently. Cole felt the force of the blast push against him, and his HUD lit up with warnings as the monolith's energy surged. "Move! Get clear!" he shouted, firing his thrusters to propel himself away. The team scattered, jetting off the surface as the monolith buckled, its structure fracturing under the strain. The crimson light flared one last time, and then silence. The energy field dissipated, the runes dimming until they were nothing more than darkened scars on the surface. Cole hovered in the void, watching as the monolith's power faded. It was over. The connection was severed. "Captain, the energy readings are dropping to 0, Torres reported. "It's shutting down." "Good work, team," Cole said, relief washing over him. "Let's get back to the ship." They returned to the Resolute, and as the airlock sealed behind them, Cole felt the tension in his shoulders finally release. They had bought themselves time, but he knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The Vorlons would return, and the galaxy would take notice of the monolith's activation. Back on the bridge, Cole sat in his command chair, his mind already working through their next move. The monolith was only one piece of a larger puzzle, a puzzle that spanned thousands of years and countless star systems. "Captain, we're picking up a new signal," Taurus said. "It's not Vorlon, it's human." Cole's eyes snapped to the screen. "Patch it through." A voice crackled over the comms, distorted but unmistakable. "This is the Vanguard, Terran Defense Fleet. Resolute, we're tracking your position. Hold tight, reinforcements are en route." Cole felt a grin spread across his face. Reinforcements? Humanity wasn't alone in this fight. "Vanguard, this is the Resolute." "Acknowledged. We're standing by." As the Resolute floated among the asteroids, awaiting the arrival of their allies, Cole looked back at the monolith's darkened form. The galaxy's secrets were deep, and they had only scratched the surface. But one thing was clear: humanity's fight was far from over. "Captain, we've got incoming signals," Raz's voice broke through, pulling Marcus from his thoughts. The holographic display flared to life, showcasing a formation of ships dropping out of FTL just outside their perimeter. Sleek, angular vessels with a dull, greenish sheen, the unmistakable signature of the Hekalian Empire's battleships. Marcus straightened. "Status report." Zack scanned the readouts, his face tightening. 10 Hekalian warships, Captain. Heavily armed, fully charged. They're forming a blockade. Marcus's jaw clenched. "They're cutting off our exit routes." The tension in the command center was palpable. Every officer, every technician, they all knew the stakes. The Hekalians weren't known for taking prisoners, and there was no room for negotiation. The aliens had always viewed humanity as a chaotic, unpredictable species, a nuisance that had refused to be crushed for far too long. "Prep the kinetic shields. We're going to have to run the gauntlet." Marcus felt the adrenaline surging. There was no time to hesitate. They were outgunned, outnumbered, but not out of the fight. The ship's hull vibrated as energy surged into the shield emitters. The Goliath's kinetic shields were primitive by galactic standards, little more than reinforced barriers designed to deflect small-scale impacts. They were a far cry from the energy absorption fields the Hekalians boasted, but Marcus had no choice. The alien ships began to reposition, tightening their formation like a net. "Redirect power from auxiliary systems to the aft shields," Marcus ordered. "We'll take a direct approach." "Captain," Raza warned, "if we take a hit." "We won't." Marcus's voice was steady. "Hold the course." The Goliath's thrusters roared to life, propelling the vessel forward. The Hekalians responded, moving to intercept. Laser batteries charged, and the distant glow of energy weapons danced on the edges of the display. The ships grew closer, their forms becoming clearer, alien, sharp, and predatory. "Brace for impact," Zack shouted. The first volley struck. The Goliath's shields flared, absorbing the initial hits but buckling under the strain. Warning alarms filled the bridge as the hull creaked under the pressure. The ship shuddered violently, throwing some crew members off balance. "Shields down to 60%, Zack called out, sweat beading on his forehead. Marcus gritted his teeth. "Divert non-essential power to shields and propulsion. We punch through now, or we don't make it at all." Raza's hands flew across the controls, and the ship's engines roared, pushing them faster. The Goliath accelerated, hurtling toward the blockade. The Hekalians unleashed another barrage. Energy beams sliced through the void, some grazing the hull, leaving trails of molten metal. The tension was unbearable. Every impact felt like a hammer blow, shaking the ship to its core. Marcus watched the trajectory, calculating angles, anticipating their movements. He could feel the thrum of the engines, the life-or-death rhythm that matched the pounding in his chest. The enemy ships tightened their formation, and for a split second, Marcus saw the trap. The Hekalians were going to funnel them, compressing their options to force a fatal collision. "Deploy flares, full spread," Marcus commanded. Explosive bursts of light erupted from the Goliath's sides, momentarily blinding the enemy's sensors. In the disarray, Marcus maneuvered the ship, making a hard veer to starboard. The Goliath weaved through the barrage, dodging laser fire by mere meters. For a heartbeat, silence filled the cockpit. Then, a flash. One of the Hecalian ships had miscalculated in the chaos and collided with another. A brilliant explosion lit up the space behind them, and Marcus felt a grim satisfaction. "Forward, now," he barked. With a path momentarily clear, the Goliath surged ahead, its engines burning hotter than ever. The remaining Hecalians adjusted, but they had lost their perfect positioning. The Goliath blasted through the blockade, taking a few hits, but emerging intact. "Damage report," Marcus demanded. "Shields are down to 20%, but hull integrity is holding," Zach replied. "Main systems are still operational." Marcus gave a nod, suppressing the fear that lingered. "We're not done yet." They had made it through the first wave, but the space ahead was still filled with enemy ships. Even now, the Hecalians were regrouping, their ships repositioning in a deadly dance. The Goliath systems were running hot, and the fuel reserves were dwindling. They had minutes, maybe less, before the Hecalians closed in for the kill. "Captain, new signal incoming," Raza called out. "It's from the planet's surface, Priority 1 transmission." Marcus's eyes flicked to the console. The planet they had been scouting was just ahead, a barren, crater-ridden world. But now there was something else, a distress signal, coded in an ancient Terran dialect. "What the hell is that?" Marcus muttered. He tapped into the comms, and the message played through the ship's speakers, a garbled plea in an unfamiliar voice. "Human vessel, you have the key, end the war." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Locate the source. Now." Raza's fingers danced over the console. "Got it, Captain. It's a facility deep within the northern hemisphere. Structure is massive. Preliminary scans indicate ancient architecture, but it's emitting a high-energy signature." "Could it be a trap?" Zach asked. Marcus shook his head, staring at the planet's holographic display. "We've got no other options. Whatever that is, it's calling for us. If there's any chance it can help us, we take it." "Course set, Captain. Preparing for atmospheric entry." The Goliath plunged toward the planet, its hull vibrating as they breached the atmosphere. The sensors picked up storms, massive energy fluctuations, and a surface dotted with ruins. The facility loomed ahead, half buried in the wasteland, and as they neared, its massive doors began to open, like the jaws of some ancient beast. "Get the landing gear ready. We're going in." As the Goliath touched down, the ground shook beneath them, and the planet's storms howled outside the hull. Marcus led the landing party, his boots hitting the ground as the ramp descended. The air was cold, filled with dust and the scent of ancient metal. The structure before them towered like a fortress, its walls marked with symbols older than any known language. Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down. This place was a relic, a remnant from a time when humanity had barely ventured beyond its own star. But as they approached, the doors continued to open, and a light flickered to life, a beacon guiding them in. "Captain, this feels wrong," Zach whispered. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're dealing with." Marcus's voice was calm, but every instinct screamed caution. They were walking into the unknown, but whatever lay ahead, it was the only lead they had. They stepped inside, weapons at the ready. The interior was vast, lined with ancient machinery and conduits pulsing with energy. A deep hum resonated through the air, a sound of immense power just waiting to be unleashed. "Welcome, humans." The voice echoed from all directions, and Marcus's blood ran cold. They weren't alone. Marcus scanned the interior of the ancient facility, taking in the massive hall lined with towering columns. Machinery, long dormant but still humming faintly with energy, stretched into the darkness beyond. Each step they took echoed through the cavernous space, their boots crunching over dust that hadn't been disturbed in millennia. "Eyes open," Marcus said quietly. Zach and Raza fanned out, weapons ready, scanning for movement. The voice that had greeted them still hung in the air, resonating through the ancient walls. It felt omnipresent, like the facility itself was aware of their every move. The lights overhead, flickering to life in succession, seemed to lead them deeper into the structure. "Captain, this place is massive," Zack whispered, his voice barely carrying through their comms. Marcus nodded. "Keep moving. We find the source of that signal." As they advanced, the air grew warmer, the hum of power intensifying. The walls, now light by the overhead lighting, revealed carvings etched deep into the metallic surface, symbols and patterns that Marcus didn't recognize. They were intricate, almost mathematical, and yet they seemed organic, like they had grown into the structure itself. Raza paused, kneeling to examine one of the carvings. "Captain, these markings, they're not human, but they're similar to those we found on the outer rim. The ones from the precursor ruins." Marcus's brow furrowed. "The precursors? You think they built this?" Raza's gaze remained fixed on the pattern, her fingers tracing the grooves. "I don't know, but whoever did, this place is ancient, maybe as old as the war itself." Marcus's pulse quickened. If this structure was indeed linked to the precursors, the long-extinct race that had vanished before humanity even took its first steps into the galactic stage, it might hold answers. Answers to technology, to the war, to the secrets of the universe. Or it might be something else entirely. "Let's not speculate," Marcus said, his voice low. "We stick to the mission." They continued forward, the path sloping downward into a series of tunnels. Each tunnel was lined with conduits that pulsed with a faint green light. The energy readings from their scanners fluctuated, suggesting vast power reserves, far beyond what the ship's systems could analyze. It was like walking through the veins of some ancient, slumbering beast. "Multiple life forms detected," Zack murmured as they approached a central chamber. "But I'm not reading any known signatures." Marcus gestured for the team to hold position. He scanned the area, a circular expanse, dominated by a massive platform that glowed with the same green light. The walls were lined with enormous machines, their functions unknown. Some seemed like reactors, others more like massive storage units. The air was thick, charged with potential energy. Marcus's instincts flared. They were standing at the heart of something monumental. He moved slowly, weapon raised, approaching the platform's edge. Then it activated. A beam of light shot upward from the platform, and in its glow, Marcus saw a figure, a hologram, humanoid, but unmistakably alien. Its features were elongated, its eyes larger than any human's, and its body seemed to shimmer with static as the projection stabilized. "Welcome," it spoke again, the voice echoing through the chamber. "You are the first in 800,000 cycles to enter this domain." Marcus held his ground, weapon still aimed but finger off the trigger. "Identify yourself." The hologram flickered, as if searching for the right words. "I am the custodian of this facility, the last remnant of the Urkhalan, guardians of the Nexus Gate." Zack's eyes widened. "Urkhalans, they were wiped out centuries ago." Marcus narrowed his gaze. "What is the Nexus Gate?" The custodian's image flickered again, and the surrounding machinery began to hum louder, as if responding to its presence. "The Nexus Gate is the key, an artifact designed to stabilize and unify the fractured domains of space-time. Its activation was meant to bring peace, but it was lost when the Great War began. Your species, humans, carry within you the final component needed to complete its cycle." Marcus's grip tightened on his weapon. "We're not here for riddles. What do you want?" The custodian's eyes, alien, but strangely focused, locked onto Marcus. "The war that has consumed the galaxy for millennia is tied to the gate. Without it, the rift between species, between worlds, will continue to widen. You have the chance to repair it." "What does it need?" Marcus asked, his tone even but cautious. "Your presence here is no accident. The code that lies within your DNA is the final sequence. Your species was meant to be the catalyst." Before the custodian could finish, the chamber shuddered violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the hum of energy grew erratic. Zack checked his scanner, eyes darting. "Captain, we've got multiple signatures converging on our position. Hekalian troops." Marcus swore under his breath. "Raza, secure the exits. Zack, cover the rear." The team shifted, moving into defensive positions. The custodian's hologram flickered, struggling to maintain coherence. The Hekalians seek to destroy this facility. They know its power. If they succeed, the war will become eternal. "Then we hold them off," Marcus said, determination in his eyes. "Until we know more." The first shots rang out, and Marcus dove for cover behind one of the massive conduits. Energy beams ricocheted off the metallic walls, leaving glowing scorch marks. The air filled with the acrid scent of burning metal as the Hekalians advanced, their weapons blazing. "Raza, suppressing fire!" Marcus shouted. She unleashed a barrage, pinning down the enemy troops. Zack flanked to the side, targeting one of the advancing Hekalians and taking it down with a precise shot. But more kept pouring in, their numbers swelling. They had to have dropped from orbit, deploying directly into the facility. "Captain, we're getting overwhelmed," Zack called out, firing again as another squad pushed forward. Marcus's mind raced. They were running out of options, and the enemy had them pinned. The custodian's warning echoed in his thoughts. The Hekalians knew the importance of this place. If they succeeded in destroying it, the war could rage on for untold centuries. "Push forward," Marcus barked, firing as he advanced toward the platform. The custodian's hologram sparked back to life, its form unstable. "The gate systems are damaged, but if you can reach the core and override the failsafes, you may have a chance to initiate the sequence." Marcus ducked as another volley of energy fire streaked overhead. "And if we fail?" "There is no second chance," the custodian replied. "The war will become endless." Marcus locked eyes with Zack and Raza. "We're going for the core. Cover each other. No mistakes." They pushed forward through the hail of gunfire, navigating the ancient machinery as the Hekalians closed in. Each step felt heavier, the stakes weighing on their shoulders. Marcus knew they were walking into the unknown, into something that might either save the galaxy or become its undoing. He could only hope they were ready. Marcus steadied himself as the team pushed further into the ancient facility. The air grew colder, and the walls hummed with a low, ominous energy that resonated through his bones. Every step forward felt like a journey deeper into the unknown, into a place that defied time and history. The Urkhalans had left their mark, but why it still thrummed with life after so many millennia was a question that gnawed at him. The custodian's voice broke through the silence. "We are approaching the central core. The gate's control systems are located beyond. Proceed with caution. Defensive measures remain active." Zack glanced at Marcus. "Defensive measures? This place is ancient. What kind of defenses are we talking about?" "Unknown," the custodian replied. "The Urkhalans designed their structures with adaptive technologies. The systems may respond based on the intruder's biology." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Which means it could adapt to us, or worse, specifically target us." "Precisely." The corridor ahead split into 3 paths. Each seemed identical, the walls etched with symbols that Zack quickly recorded with his scanner. Marcus considered their options. "Zack, any way to know which path is the right one?" Zack's eyes flickered over his scanner, analyzing the data. "The energy signatures are strongest down the center path, but the left and right paths show signs of movement, non-human." Raza tightened her grip on her weapon. "Hekalians?" "Could be," Marcus said. "Or it could be this place's defense mechanisms. Either way, we need to move carefully." Marcus chose the central path. It was the most direct route, and if the Hekalians were in the facility, they would have likely taken the other paths to flank and ambush. "Stay sharp, and keep your eyes on the walls. If this place has adaptive tech, it could come from anywhere." The air grew denser, and the hum from the walls grew louder as they moved deeper. Glowing conduits lined the floor, pulsing in sequence as if guiding them further into the heart of the facility. The lights reflected off the team's visors, casting an eerie glow that made the ancient carvings dance in and out of view. Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This place wasn't just a relic. It was alive in a way he couldn't quite grasp. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling soaring into darkness. At its center, a massive structure loomed, an enormous ring suspended in the air by unseen forces. The Nexus Gate. It was a marvel of alien engineering. The surface of the gate shimmered with layers of translucent, shifting material, forming patterns that seemed to ripple like water. The entire structure pulsed with power, and conduits spread out from its base, connecting to various points around the chamber. "The Nexus Gate," Zack whispered. "It's active." Marcus moved forward cautiously. "But why is it still functioning after all these centuries?" "The gate is self-sustaining," the custodian explained. "It draws energy from subspace rifts created during the war. However, without the activation code keyed to the Urkhalan genome, its true power remains dormant." Marcus exchanged a look with Zack. "And this code, we have it." The custodian's light flickered. "The genetic data within your human genome carries the activation key, but it must be combined with the control console to complete the sequence." Zack knelt by the console near the gate, his fingers moving rapidly across the alien symbols. "I can interface with it, but it's going to take time. There's a lot of encryption here." Marcus nodded. "Raza, set up a perimeter. We've come too far to let the Hicalians or whatever defenses this place has get the drop on us." As Raza positioned herself, scanning the entry points for any movement, Marcus felt a twinge of unease. The hum in the walls intensified, vibrating through the floor. "Custodian, are the defenses still active in this chamber?" "Affirmative. The central core remains on alert, and its systems are assessing your presence." Before Marcus could respond, the air in the chamber shifted. The conduits lining the walls glowed brighter, and from the shadows above, shapes began to descend. They were mechanical constructs, each the size of a man, their bodies bristling with rotating appendages and glowing eyes. "Engage," Marcus shouted as the first of the constructs launched forward. Raza fired, her plasma rounds impacting the construct's shell and leaving scorch marks, but not slowing it down. It moved with terrifying speed, swinging a bladed arm that sliced through the air where Raza had been moments before. Marcus moved quickly, unleashing controlled burst at the constructs. The team's combined firepower kept the machines at bay, but more emerged from the shadows. Each one seemed to analyze their movements, adjusting its tactics as it advanced. Zack worked frantically at the console. "Whatever you're doing, keep them busy. This encryption is layered. It's like the system is fighting me." Marcus gritted his teeth as he dispatched another construct. "We don't have much time, Zack. Make it happen." The custodian's voice came through again, sharper this time. "Warning, additional units detected. Probability of survival decreases without activation of the Nexus Gate." Marcus fired at an approaching construct, but its speed made it hard to hit vital points. The machines were learning, adapting to their movements. Raza, moving with precision, managed to down two more, but she was already running low on ammo. Zack's hands flew across the console, sweat forming on his brow. "Almost there. I've bypassed the primary encryption." Another construct lunged at Marcus, its claws extending. He barely sidestepped the attack, slamming his rifle butt into the machine's sensor array, buying himself a few more seconds. "Zack, now would be a good time." The console beeped, and the gate pulsed, its patterns accelerating. Zack grinned. "Got it. Genome sequence engaged." The gate responded immediately. A beam of light shot out, enveloping Marcus. He felt a pull, as if something deep within his cells resonated with the ancient technology. The constructs froze, their eyes flickering as the beam expanded, engulfing the chamber. "Warning," the custodian said, its voice echoing in the chamber. "The sequence has initiated. Prepare for transport." Marcus's vision blurred as the gate activated, its power growing exponentially. The room around him twisted, and he felt himself being pulled beyond the chamber, beyond the facility itself. Just before everything faded, he caught a glimpse of the custodian's final transmission. "Welcome, Urk-Hallen. The galaxy awaits your command." Marcus felt the pull intensify, dragging him through a maelstrom of light and energy. The sensation of movement wasn't just physical, it felt as though his very atoms were being unraveled and threaded through the vast fabric of space. He blinked, and the chamber dissolved around him, replaced by an entirely different landscape. When the light finally dissipated, he found himself standing on an immense platform suspended in a void. The platform stretched into the distance, appearing to float above a sea of swirling energy, deep blues and electric greens pulsing below. The sky above was a void filled with distant stars, each one flickering as if watching from the far reaches of the cosmos. Zack, Raza, and the custodian appeared next to him in quick flashes, one after another. Zack stumbled slightly, catching his balance as he took in their surroundings, while Raza immediately scanned the area, weapon ready. The custodian hovered silently, its light shifting between hues as if processing their new environment. "This is not what I expected," Zack muttered, his eyes wide. "Where are we?" Marcus steadied himself, the energy beneath his feet vibrating with a low hum. "Custodian, what is this place?" The custodian's voice resonated around them, sounding almost reverent. "This is the waypoint, a junction between realities. The Nexus Gate allows for travel not just across space, but through dimensions beyond your perception." Raza's eyes narrowed. "We're not in our galaxy anymore, are we?" The custodian's light flickered. "Correct. The waypoint exists outside conventional space-time. It serves as a hub to access points across the galaxy, an Urk-Hallen construct built to navigate and manipulate the vast networks that span beyond physical dimensions." Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. "So, why are we here?" "To reactivate the gate's full potential and end the war, you must reach the control sphere," the custodian explained. "It holds the data necessary to understand and unlock the Nexus Gate's final sequence. Without it, the gate remains limited to defense systems and basic transit." Zack adjusted his visor, checking his equipment. "Let me guess, getting to this control sphere won't be a walk in the park." The custodian's light pulsed. The Urk-Hallens protected their technology with formidable measures. This platform is a test, designed to determine whether an individual possesses the necessary traits for access. Marcus scanned the area. The platform, though vast, was unnervingly empty. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. "And if we fail? Then access to the Nexus Gate will be denied, and the waypoint will expel us back to the facility, if it doesn't destroy us first." Raza tightened her grip on her weapon. "So, we need to pass this test. What's our first move?" The platform shifted beneath their feet, and a series of pathways materialized, extending in different directions. Each path shimmered with light, forming an intricate, maze-like pattern that branched off into the distance. "The trial has begun," the custodian said. "Each path leads to a different segment of the test. You must choose the correct path to reach the control sphere." Marcus exchanged a look with his team. "If we split up, we increase our chances of finding the right path, but we also risk facing whatever defenses this place has alone. If we stick together, we're stronger but slower." Raza nodded. "We've worked as a unit so far. I say we stay together, move fast, clear obstacles, and find the right path." "Agreed," Zack added. "This place is ancient. I doubt its defenses will be easy to handle alone." Marcus made the decision quickly. "We move together. Stay alert, and if anyone sees anything off, call it out. Custodian, any hint on which path we should take?" The custodian's light flickered. "The Urk-Hallens designed the waypoint to test adaptability and perception. There is no single correct path. Rather, the correct path shifts based on the awareness of those traversing it." "That's vague," Zack muttered. "So basically, it's reading our actions and adapting." "Correct." Marcus led the way down the nearest pathway. The floor beneath them shifted, forming steps and slopes that forced the team to adjust their pace. As they moved, the platform began to pulse with an eerie light, casting strange shadows that danced around them. Marcus could feel the intensity rising. The waypoint was testing them, observing their every move. As they reached a junction, a sudden burst of energy arced across their path, striking the ground and leaving a molten scar. Zack dropped to one knee, analyzing the energy signature with his scanner. "That's not just a random trap. It's actively targeting us." Raza swung her weapon in the direction of the source. "Anything in sight?" "Negative," Zack replied. "It's almost like the waypoint itself is acting as the aggressor." Marcus narrowed his eyes, scanning the shadows. "Custodian, how do we counter these defenses?" "The platform adapts based on your actions and your cohesion as a unit," the custodian said. "Continue moving as one, and anticipate changes in the terrain and the energy patterns." "Understood." Marcus pushed forward, leading the way with precise, calculated steps. He felt the energy pulses growing more frequent, the air charging with each step they took. As they navigated further, the pathway split into three again. This time, the walls shimmered with symbols that glowed with an intensity Marcus had seen before. "Wait." He held up a hand, halting the team. "Those symbols, they're similar to the ones on the Nexus gate back at the facility." Zack moved in closer. "You're right. They seem to be some kind of guidance system. If we can interpret them, we might know which path to take." As Zack scanned the symbols, Marcus felt another twinge in his instincts. Something felt off. The air around them was too still, too silent. He signaled Raza to cover their rear, while he and Zack focused on the symbols. Zack's eyes lit up as he connected the patterns. "I think I've got it. The middle path matches the energy frequency we've been following since we got here. It's the most likely route." Marcus nodded. "All right, middle path. Let's move." As they advanced, the platform continued to shift and change, the patterns on the floor becoming more intricate. Marcus felt the air grow heavier, the pressure building, as if the entire structure were reacting to their presence. The energy pulses now flashed in rapid sequences, creating obstacles that forced them to leap, duck, and weave to avoid being hit. One bolt struck close, and Marcus felt the heat singe past him. "Zack, how much further?" Zack consulted his scanner. "We're close. The energy source is stabilizing. The control sphere should be just ahead." The pathway widened into another chamber, larger than the last. At its center was a floating orb, its surface shimmering like liquid metal. It pulsed in rhythm with the platform, emitting waves of energy that spread across the room. "There it is," Raza said, her eyes locked on the sphere. "The control sphere." Marcus approached cautiously, motioning for the others to stay alert. "Custodian, any more defenses?" The custodian's light remained steady. "The trial is nearly complete. Only one task remains: interface with the control sphere and present the activation code." Zack moved to the console beside the orb, his hands flying across the controls. "Almost there. Just need to sync our genetic code with the system." Marcus felt the platform shift again. This time, instead of attacking, the floor beneath their feet solidified, anchoring them in place. The energy conduits brightened, their light forming patterns that matched the symbols on Marcus's uniform. "It's responding to us," Zack said. "Just a few more seconds." Suddenly, the air trembled, and a deep, resonant hum filled the chamber. Marcus's hand instinctively reached for his weapon as a figure began to materialize on the far side of the room. It was tall, its form obscured by shadows and light, but its eyes burned with an unnatural intensity. Marcus's instincts flared. Whatever it was not friendly. "Zack, now would be a good time," Marcus called out, keeping his eyes locked on the figure as it advanced. "I'm almost done." Zack's fingers flew across the console, the orb pulsing faster with each keystroke. Marcus steadied his weapon. "Raza, prepare to engage. We don't know what we're dealing with." The figure stepped forward, its body phasing in and out of reality as it approached, and Marcus braced himself for the unknown. The figure shimmered, its features flickering like a poorly tuned hologram. Marcus's grip tightened around his weapon as he struggled to make sense of its form. It appeared humanoid, yet there was something profoundly unsettling about it, an aura that radiated both intelligence and hostility. "Zack, any luck?" Marcus shouted, keeping his eyes trained on the advancing entity. Raza positioned herself between Marcus and the figure, weapon raised, her stance defensive. "Almost done," Zack grunted, fingers racing against the glowing interface. The sphere responded, its light intensifying, light the chamber with a blinding brilliance. As the figure moved closer, it spoke, its voice a cacophony of echoes, each word layered over the others, as if multiple entities were speaking in unison. "Interlopers, you trespass upon sacred ground. Your intrusion shall be met with consequence." Marcus stepped forward, instinctively shielding Raza with his body. "We don't want any trouble. We're here to end the war and activate the Nexus Gate. We mean no harm." The figure paused, its shimmering visage flickering. "Your kind has long been a blight upon this galaxy. Your intentions are irrelevant. You are here to face judgment." Zack's voice rose in urgency. "Just a little longer. I need to sync our codes." The air crackled as the figure raised its hand, and tendrils of energy surged toward Zack. Marcus fired, the shot piercing through the vibrant energies that surrounded the entity. The bullet ricocheted off an unseen barrier, sparking against the walls of the chamber. "Get down," Marcus yelled, and Raza immediately dropped to one knee, firing off a shot that struck the figure directly in its glowing chest. Instead of falling, it absorbed the energy, its form twisting in response, becoming more solid, more dangerous. "Your weapons are futile against the Chosen," it declared, advancing relentlessly. "Zack, hurry," Marcus shouted, his heart racing. They couldn't hold off the entity forever, and the time to act was slipping away. Zack's face contorted with concentration, sweat beading on his forehead. "I can't rush this. If I make a mistake, we could lose our only chance." The figure lunged, tendrils of energy arcing toward Marcus. He dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike. Raza fired again, but the figure's defenses repelled the shot with a violent surge, sending shockwaves through the room. "Focus, Zack," Marcus yelled, scrambling to his feet. He glanced at Raza, who was already moving to flank the figure. "We need a distraction." As Marcus charged forward, he caught a glimpse of Zack's progress. The energy patterns on the control sphere were aligning, but he needed more time. Time they didn't have. The entity turned its attention to Marcus, energy surging in its hand. "You will not pass. Your efforts are in vain." "Try to stop me," Marcus shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He rolled beneath the figure's outstretched arm, barely avoiding the surge of energy that followed. As he regained his footing, he drew on every ounce of courage and fury he could muster. He wasn't going to let this ancient guardian, this embodiment of centuries of conflict, stop him now. Raza charged in from the side, her weapon blazing. "Get back, Marcus," she shouted as she engaged the figure head-on. Marcus took the opportunity to circle around, trying to create an opening for Zack. The floor beneath them began to pulse in rhythm with the conflict, each surge pushing them closer to the brink. The energy crackling in the air was palpable, vibrating with tension. "Zack," Marcus called again, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need that sphere activated now." "Almost there," Zack grunted, his eyes locked onto the console. "Just a bit more." As Raza dodged a retaliatory strike from the figure, Marcus caught a glimpse of the sphere flickering with energy. A soft hum began to resonate in the chamber, growing louder, stronger. The colors shifted in the orb, a brilliant array of lights forming a swirling vortex. Suddenly, the figure's attention shifted, sensing the change. "No, you will not control this power." With a burst of speed, it lunged at Zack, but Marcus was faster. He dove between them, tackling Zack to the ground just as a wave of energy struck the console. The sphere sputtered, a shockwave rippling through the chamber, knocking both Marcus and Zack to the floor. "Stay down," Raza shouted, firing in rapid succession, each shot aimed to distract the figure. It turned its ire toward her, but she held her ground, retreating only slightly as the figure retaliated with energy tendrils that whipped dangerously close. Marcus scrambled to his feet, heart pounding. He had to get Zack back to the console. "We can't let it reach him." Zack, recovering quickly, was already back at the controls, fingers flying over the interface. "It's sinking. Just a few more seconds." "Then let's buy you some time." Marcus rushed forward, determination coursing through him as he shouted, "Raza, cover me." With no time to waste, Marcus launched himself at the figure, trying to draw its attention fully onto himself. The figure swung its arm, a brilliant arc of energy crackling toward him. But he ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding the attack. As he sprang back to his feet, the ground trembled beneath them, the platform resonating with the power of the control sphere as it began to activate. He could feel the very essence of the waypoint shifting, responding to Zack's efforts. "Keep going, Zack," Marcus shouted, the sound of his own voice barely cutting through the chaos. Raza continued to fire, the energy blasts light the room, casting erratic shadows. She was focused, unyielding, channeling every ounce of her training into each shot. The figure retaliated, sending waves of energy that knocked Raza back, but she quickly regained her stance, refusing to back down. "Raza, stay on your feet," Marcus called, dodging another strike as he repositioned himself. Zack's voice broke through the tension. "I'm almost there, just need to." The figure's form flickered with annoyance, sensing the imminent threat. "You are foolish to challenge the chosen. Your fate is sealed." Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Energy spiraled around the control sphere, and a flash of brilliance enveloped the chamber. Marcus shielded his eyes, feeling the surge of energy pulse like a heartbeat. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the energy coalesced, and the control sphere glowed with an ethereal light. "Synchronization complete," a voice echoed, deep and resonant. "You have proven worthy." The figure halted, confusion etched across its flickering visage. What is this?" With a commanding presence, the control sphere began to unleash streams of energy that shot toward the figure, wrapping around it like ethereal chains. "No, you will not bind me," it screamed, thrashing against its bonds. Marcus's heart raced as the energy surged, enveloping the figure in a radiant cocoon. "It's working," he shouted. "Keep it contained." "Marcus," Raza's voice rose in urgency, "it's absorbing too much energy. If we don't find a way to direct it, it could." But Marcus was already moving. "Zack, how do we channel the energy?" Zack's eyes were wide as he frantically analyzed the interface. "I'm trying. The control sphere needs to be calibrated to." "Just do it," Marcus yelled, the atmosphere thick with tension as the figure continued to struggle, its energy growing in intensity. With a sharp inhale, Zack focused, recalibrating the interface. "I need a moment. If I can reverse the flow, we can redirect it to the gate." The energy around the figure surged dangerously, and Marcus could feel the temperature rising, sweat dripping down his brow. "Make it fast." The control sphere pulsed again, and the light around it grew blinding. Just as Marcus was about to launch himself at the figure again, the room was filled with a shock wave that knocked him off his feet. The figure shrieked in rage, the sound echoing through the chamber, drowning out everything else. "You will pay for this. I will unleash the wrath of the ancients." "Zack," Raza called, struggling against the shockwave as she steadied herself. "We don't have time for theatrics. We need that energy redirected." "Almost there," Zack shouted, his voice strained, fingers flying over the console with renewed urgency. As Marcus regained his footing, he turned to face the figure, defiance coursing through him. "We're ending this war, one way or another." The figure laughed, dark and haunting. "You think you can change fate? You are nothing but a flicker in the vastness of existence." Marcus felt a surge of anger at the figure's words. Fate is what we make of it. As Zack's hands raced, the control sphere responded, tendrils of energy shifting, forming new pathways. Now, redirect it. With a final surge, Zack activated the sequence, and streams of energy shot toward the figure. The impact was immediate. The light enveloped the figure, and with a blinding flash, the chamber trembled. No! The figure screamed as it was consumed by the radiant light, its form disintegrating into particles of energy, lost to the void. As the light receded, silence fell over the chamber. Marcus, breathless, stood alongside Raza and Zack, their hearts pounding in their chests. "Did we?" Marcus began, his voice barely a whisper. Zack's face was pale, but a triumphant smile broke through. "We did it. We activated the control sphere." As the last remnants of the figure vanished, the energies of the waypoint began to stabilize, glowing in harmony. The room shifted, and before them, the Nexus Gate shimmered into view, a vast portal filled with swirling colors and endless possibilities. Marcus exchanged glances with Raza and Zack. The air was charged with a new sense of hope. They had not only survived, they had taken a monumental step toward ending the war that had plagued their existence for far too long. "Let's go," Marcus said, determination in his voice. "We have a galaxy to save." Together, they stepped toward the Nexus Gate, ready to face whatever lay beyond. The Nexus Gate loomed before them, a swirling mass of colors that pulsed with energy, its surface resembling a whirlpool caught in an eternal cycle. Marcus took a moment to catch his breath, his heart still racing from the adrenaline of the confrontation. The remnants of the ancient guardian lay behind them, but the weight of what they had accomplished, what they were about to undertake, filled him with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. "Is this really going to work?" Raza asked, her voice steady yet edged with uncertainty. She stepped closer to the gate, the light reflecting in her eyes. "We don't even know what's on the other side." "Do we have any other options?" Zack replied, glancing between the two. "The war is raging, and we've just taken a monumental step. We need to follow through." His fingers hovered above the control sphere's console, still pulsating with energy as if eager to guide them through the unknown. "We can't turn back now," Marcus said, determination lacing his voice. "If we're going to end this war, we need to push forward. The gate represents our best chance to find the power needed to unite the factions against the Arborian coalition." Raza nodded, her resolve solidifying. "Agreed. Let's do this." The trio stepped closer to the gate, the vibrant colors swirling around them, pulling at the edges of their consciousness. Marcus felt a magnetic force tugging him forward, as if the gate were calling out to him specifically, urging him to take the plunge. He cast one last glance back at the control sphere, a silent acknowledgement of the technological marvel that had allowed them this opportunity. "Zack, can you get us through safely?" Marcus asked, the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. "Just like we practiced," Zack replied, his voice steady despite the underlying tension. He began to input commands into the console, the energy flowing between them and the gate, creating a bridge of light. With a final keystroke, the colors intensified, and the gate pulsated with a rhythm that felt almost alive. A resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through Marcus's bones, causing his skin to prickle. The gateway shimmered, forming a solid frame that beckoned them to step into the unknown. "On 3, Marcus said, raising a hand to count. 1, 2, 3. They leaped forward together, the world around them dissolving into a cascade of light as they crossed the threshold. A sensation of weightlessness engulfed them, time stretching and contracting as they plunged deeper into the energies swirling within the gate. The moment felt both instantaneous and eternal, the air filled with shimmering motes of light that danced around them. Marcus's heart raced as visions flashed before him, images of planets ravaged by war, ships engaged in dogfights against the backdrop of distant suns, and a future that hung in the balance. It was as if the gate was revealing the interconnectedness of all life, the fragility of their existence amid the vast cosmic expanse. Then, with a sudden jolt, they landed on solid ground. Marcus stumbled, catching himself just in time. He surveyed their new surroundings. The landscape was unlike anything he had ever seen. A vibrant field of glowing flora stretched as far as the eye could see, shimmering hues of blue and green light by an otherworldly light. The sky above was an ethereal blend of swirling colors, a kaleidoscope that shifted with every passing moment. "Where are we?" Raza breathed, awe coloring her voice. "I have no idea," Zack admitted, scanning the horizon. "But it feels different, almost alive." They stood at the edge of an expansive meadow, the air thick with a scent of something sweet and fragrant. The ground beneath them felt warm and pulsating, as if the very earth breathed in rhythm with their presence. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked, his gaze sweeping across the landscape. "We need to find something, anything, that can help us in this fight." Suddenly, a distant sound caught his attention, like a melodic chime resonating through the air. It echoed, bouncing off the hills and valleys, growing louder as it approached. Marcus shared a glance with Raza and Zack, his heart racing at the thought of potential allies or enemies. "Stay alert," he cautioned, his instincts on high alert. "We don't know what's out there." As the sound drew closer, a figure emerged from the vibrant haze. It was tall and slender, draped in robes that shimmered like liquid light, the fabric flowing around it with an elegance that seemed almost supernatural. Its features were delicate and ethereal, with eyes that glowed softly like distant stars. "Travelers from beyond," the figure spoke, its voice melodic and resonant, weaving through the air like a soft breeze. "You have crossed the threshold of the Nexus Gate. I am Alara, a guardian of this realm." "Guardians?" Raza echoed, her brow furrowing in confusion. "What realm? Are you here to help us?" Alara inclined its head, a serene smile touching its lips. "You seek power to unite the factions against a common enemy. The Arborean Coalition is a great threat to the balance of this galaxy. We have watched your struggle for eons, and now the time has come for you to learn." "Learn what?" Marcus pressed, curiosity piqued. "How can we defeat them?" "You must first understand the forces at play," Ilara replied, gesturing toward the vast expanse. "This realm holds knowledge beyond your comprehension, and it is through this knowledge that you will gain the strength to unite." Marcus exchanged glances with Raza and Zack, a mix of hope and uncertainty flooding his senses. "How do we access this knowledge?" Ilara raised a hand, and the ground beneath them shimmered. A path formed, winding through the vibrant flora, leading toward a distant hill crowned with towering structures that resembled ancient temples. "Follow this path. The Temple of Wisdom awaits you. There, you will uncover the secrets that lie hidden within." With a nod of determination, Marcus stepped forward, Raza and Zack following closely behind. The terrain felt alive beneath their feet, the flora whispering softly as they moved. The melodic chimes filled the air, guiding them toward their destination. As they traversed the path, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The vibrant colors around them pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost sentient, as if the very essence of the realm acknowledged their presence. "Do you think we can trust this, Alara?" Raza asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if it's leading us into a trap?" "We don't have much choice," Marcus replied, determination etching itself into his voice. "We came here to find a way to end the war, and this might be our best shot. We can't turn back now." Their journey continued, the path winding through lush vegetation that radiated warmth. Each step brought them closer to the hill, and with every passing moment, the tension mounted within Marcus. What knowledge awaited them? What power would they uncover? Finally, they reached the summit. The Temple of Wisdom loomed before them, its architecture breathtaking, a fusion of organic shapes and crystalline structures that glimmered in the ambient light. The entrance was framed by cascading vines that sparkled with dew, inviting them inside. Allah gestured for them to enter. "Within these walls lies the wisdom of ages. You must be prepared to confront the truths that await you." As they stepped into the temple, the atmosphere shifted, the air thick with the weight of knowledge. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings that depicted celestial events, battles, and the rise and fall of civilizations. This place is incredible, Zack marveled, his eyes wide as he traced his fingers along the carvings. It's like a history of the galaxy. More than just history, Ilara corrected. This temple houses the collective memories of those who have come before. The wisdom of the ancients is waiting for you to unlock. Marcus stepped deeper into the temple, drawn to a central chamber where a vast crystal pulsed with a warm glow. It radiated energy, the colors shifting like the auroras of distant planets. Approach, Ilara instructed, beckoning them closer. The crystal will reveal what you seek. Heart racing, Marcus moved forward, Raza and Zack at his side. The air crackled with energy, and as they neared the crystal, images began to form within its depths, visions of ancient battles, thriving civilizations, and a dark figure that loomed over it all. "What is this?" Raza whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Focus," Ilara urged. "Let the crystal guide you. Open your minds to the knowledge it holds." Marcus reached out, fingers grazing the cool surface of the crystal. A surge of energy coursed through him, visions flooding his mind, snapshots of conflict and unity, the cyclical nature of war, and the possibility of peace. He saw images of a united galaxy, diverse factions standing together against the darkness. But those visions were interspersed with scenes of devastation, of civilizations crushed underfoot, the Arborean coalition rising in the chaos. "The coalition feeds on division," a voice echoed in his mind, resonating with the crystal's energy. "To defeat them, you must forge unity among the factions. Each of their strengths must combine to counter the darkness they spread." "Unity," Marcus murmured, the realization settling within him. "That's the key." Suddenly, the vision shifted. A new figure appeared, an enigmatic being with radiant features, its eyes glowing with wisdom. It extended a hand, and in an instant, Marcus felt a connection, a bond forming between them. "Remember this truth," the figure spoke, its voice powerful yet gentle. "You hold the potential to reshape your destiny. The path will be fraught with challenges, but with unity, there is hope." Marcus gasped as the images intensified, the weight of their importance crashing over him. He pulled back, breathless, glancing at Raza and Zack. "Did you see that?" "It was incredible," Zack said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "But what do we do with this knowledge?" "We need to return to our allies," Marcus said, determination surging within him. "We have to spread the message of unity. If we can rally the factions together, we might have a chance." "The Arborean coalition won't take kindly to that," Raza reminded him. "They'll see us as a threat." Marcus nodded, steeling himself. "Then we'll have to be prepared. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We've come too far to back down now." Ilara watched them intently, its expression a mix of pride and concern. "The journey ahead will test your resolve. You must be prepared for the unexpected." "Whatever comes our way, we'll face it together," Zack affirmed, his voice steady. "Then you must return," Ilara instructed. "The Nexus Gate can transport you back to your realm. Take the knowledge you've gained and share it with those who will listen. The fate of your galaxy hangs in the balance." With a final glance at the crystal, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had a mission now, a calling to unite the factions against the Arborean coalition and end the war that had consumed them for far too long. "Let's go," he said, leading the way back to the entrance of the temple. The vibrant colors of the landscape welcomed them, the melody of the realm echoing in their hearts. As they reached the Nexus Gate once more, Ilara stepped forward, a warm smile light its features. "Remember, the strength of your unity lies in the bonds you forge. Trust in each other, and you will prevail." They nodded, gratitude swelling within them. Marcus took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. He was ready to face whatever awaited them. With a final glance at the temple, Marcus stepped through the gate, Raza and Zack by his side. The world dissolved into light once more, and they felt the familiar sensation of weightlessness enveloping them. In an instant, they were back in the control sphere, the vibrant colors of the Nexus Gate replaced by the cold metallic surfaces of their vessel. "Are we back?" Raza asked, her eyes scanning their surroundings. "Yes, and we have work to do," Marcus replied, his resolve unyielding. "We need to contact our allies and share what we've learned." Zack moved to the console, initiating the communication systems. "We need to reach Admiral Kellen. He'll know how to rally the factions." As the screen flickered to life, Marcus felt a surge of determination. They had crossed realms and uncovered ancient wisdom. Now, it was time to put that knowledge into action and fight back against the darkness that threatened their existence. The screen crackled, and Admiral Kellen's stern face appeared. "Marcus, what happened? Where are you?" "We've found a way to unite the factions," Marcus said, urgency threading his voice. "We need to act quickly. The Arborian Coalition is more powerful than we ever imagined, but we have knowledge that can turn the tide." "What knowledge?" Kellen pressed, concern etching into his features. Marcus glanced at Raza and Zack, his heart racing. "We need to gather everyone. The time for division is over. We must unite against a common enemy, or we risk losing everything." As Kellen processed his words, the reality of their situation began to settle in. "I'll convene the council," he said. "We'll gather representatives from each faction. But this won't be easy. The coalition will not sit idle." "I know," Marcus replied, determination rising within him. "But we have to try. We've seen what unity can achieve. We can't let fear dictate our choices anymore." "Understood," Kellen replied, his voice firm. "I'll contact you once we're ready. Stay safe." With that, the communication ended, leaving Marcus with a sense of urgency thrumming in his chest. "We need to prepare for what's coming." Raza and Zack nodded, their expressions mirroring his determination. "Let's gather our resources and reach out to the other factions," Zack suggested. "We need to be ready for anything." As they moved to implement their plan, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The war had lasted too long, and now they held the key to changing their fate. They worked tirelessly, reaching out to allies and strategizing their next moves. The energy in the control sphere buzzed with anticipation as they crafted messages to each faction, urging them to come together and set aside their differences. In the following days, they received responses, some hopeful, others hesitant. Many expressed skepticism about uniting against the Arborian Coalition, but Marcus was undeterred. He shared their experiences from the Nexus realm, emphasizing the importance of unity in overcoming the darkness. Finally, the day arrived for the council to convene. Representatives from various factions gathered on their ship, the atmosphere thick with tension and uncertainty. Marcus stood at the forefront, flanked by Raza and Zack, ready to present their case. Admiral Kellen addressed the assembly, his voice steady. "We are at a crossroads. The Arborian Coalition poses a significant threat to our existence. We must consider the words of Marcus, Raza, and Zack. They have ventured beyond our realm and returned with knowledge that can help us." A murmur of disbelief swept through the crowd. Various leaders exchanged wary glances, uncertainty hanging in the air. "Unity is our only path forward," Marcus interjected, his voice clear and unwavering. "We've seen the destruction caused by division. It's time to put aside our differences and work together." "And what makes you think we can trust one another?" A representative from the Xyler race challenged, arms crossed defiantly. "We don't have to trust each other completely," Zack responded, stepping forward. "But we must recognize that the Arborian Coalition is a shared enemy. Their strength lies in our division." As discussions unfolded, Marcus felt the tension in the room shift. Gradually, doubts began to fade, replaced by a glimmer of hope. They explored various strategies to confront the coalition, emphasizing collaboration and sharing resources. "Imagine what we could accomplish," Raza urged, her passion evident. "If we pool our forces and present a united front, we could thwart their advances and protect our homeworlds." As the meeting progressed, the mood shifted from skepticism to determination. By the time the council concluded, a resolution emerged, a commitment to unite against the coalition. "We will share our resources, our knowledge, and our ships," Admiral Kellen proclaimed, voice strong. "Let this be a new beginning." A wave of applause filled the chamber, hope coursing through the assembly. For the first time in centuries, factions that had once stood apart began to see the potential of unity. "Now we must prepare for battle," Marcus said, his heart racing with anticipation. "The coalition will not take kindly to our newfound alliance. We need to be ready for their response." As plans took shape, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were on the cusp of something extraordinary, a united front against the darkness that had plagued their galaxy for too long. With Zack and Raza at his side, Marcus strategized with a council, drafting battle plans and coordinating with the various factions. The stakes were high, but the resolve within them grew stronger with each passing moment. Days turned into weeks as they prepared for the impending confrontation, honing their strategies and rallying their forces. The energy in the control sphere buzzed with excitement, camaraderie growing as they worked together for a common goal. Finally, the day arrived when they were ready to face the Arborian coalition. Ships from all factions gathered, a majestic armada united against a shared enemy. Marcus stood on the bridge of their ship, heart pounding as he surveyed the fleet, a testament to what they had achieved together. "This is it," Raza said, stepping beside him. "We're about to make history." Marcus nodded, determination flooding his veins. "Let's show them what we're made of." As the fleet launched into the depths of space, a newfound sense of hope filled the hearts of every soldier on board. They were no longer isolated factions. They were a united front, ready to confront the darkness and reclaim their future. "Communication from the coalition," Zack announced, his fingers dancing over the console. The screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing visage of an Arborian leader, a being of dark energy, eyes burning with malice. "Foolish mortals," it hissed, voice dripping with disdain. "You think you can defy the coalition? You will fall, just as your predecessors did." "Not this time," Marcus shot back, steely determination in his voice. "We're stronger together, and we will not bow to tyranny." The Arborian leader laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the chamber. "We will see about that." As the communication ended, Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline. Battle stations, prepare for engagement. The fleet moved into formation, ships gliding gracefully through the void of space. Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but he was ready. They had come too far to turn back now. "Let's give them a taste of our unity," Raza said, her voice filled with determination. With a nod, Marcus activated the fleet's weapon systems. The stars around them shimmered as they approached the coalition ships, a dark wave of menace looming ahead. The moment had arrived. "On my mark," he commanded, heart racing with anticipation. As the coalition ships came into range, the command was given, and chaos erupted. Energy beams lit up the void, colliding with the darkness of the coalition fleet. Marcus's heart raced as he maneuvered their ship, weaving through the barrage of enemy fire. "This is it," Zack shouted, adrenaline surging. "We're doing it." With each passing moment, the tide of battle shifted. Their united fleet fought with unprecedented coordination, using their combined strengths to outmaneuver and outsmart the coalition forces. The energy of hope propelled them forward, driving back the darkness that had plagued them for so long. "Keep pushing," Raza urged, determination etched on her face. "We can't let up now." As the battle raged, Marcus felt a sense of clarity wash over him. They were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for a future, one forged in unity, camaraderie, and strength. The Arborian coalition would learn that they were no longer alone. With a renewed sense of purpose, Marcus led his ship into the heart of the coalition fleet, focusing on their command vessel, the source of the dark energy that loomed over the battlefield. If they could take it down, the coalition would falter. "Prepare to board," Marcus commanded, adrenaline surging through him. The plan was risky, but they needed to strike at the heart of the enemy to truly make an impact. As they closed in, the coalition's defenses flared, but their determination held firm. Marcus and his team charged forward, determined to breach the command vessel and end the Coalition's reign of terror. In the midst of the chaos, Marcus's mind raced with thoughts of the future. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for every life that had been lost to the Coalition's tyranny. This was their moment to reclaim what had been taken from them. With fierce resolve, they boarded the command vessel, navigating through the dark corridors, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the enemy's power. The air crackled with tension as they encountered resistance, but they fought with unwavering unity. "Stay together," Raza shouted, leading the charge. "We can't let them split us up." Through sheer force of will and determination, they pressed on, the sound of battle ringing in their ears. Every victory fueled their resolve, each moment reminding them of the stakes they fought for. Finally, they reached the central command room, the heart of the Coalition's operations. As they burst through the doors, Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The room was dark, filled with swirling energies that pulsed like a living entity. In the center stood the Arborean leader, eyes blazing with fury, surrounded by an aura of darkness. "Foolish mortals," it roared, the sound reverberating through the chamber. "You think you can defeat us? You will only become another casualty of this war." Marcus stepped forward, heart pounding. "We've come to put an end to your tyranny. Your reign of fear is over." With a surge of energy, the Arborean leader unleashed a wave of darkness. But Marcus and his team stood firm. They had faced insurmountable odds before. They would not back down now. "Together," Raza shouted, reaching for the power within them. The energy they had harnessed through unity surged forward, a brilliant light clashing against the darkness. As the energies collided, the command room shook with power, the very fabric of reality bending to the struggle between light and darkness. Marcus felt the weight of history on his shoulders. This was the moment they would change everything. With a final push, their combined strength surged forward, breaking through the darkness and light the chamber in a blinding light. The Arborean leader's furious screams echoed as the light engulfed it, a beacon of hope light the path to victory. As the energies clashed, Marcus felt a sense of profound connection, his allies beside him, their shared resolve amplifying their strength. They were no longer just a team, they were a united force, forging a future together. And then, with a blinding flash, the darkness shattered. The silence in the aftermath of the battle hung thick in the air, punctuated only by the distant sounds of salvage crews picking through the debris. The wreckage of the Arborean Coalition ships floated like derelict memories, remnants of a once mighty force reduced to scraps in the wake of humanity's unexpected alliance. Marcus stood on the command deck of the Horizon's Edge, surveying the devastation, his heart heavy with the weight of victory. Around him, the faces of the crew mirrored his conflict, triumph mixed with sorrow. They had won, yes, but at what cost? The images of the fallen haunted him. The faces of brave warriors he had come to respect now forever absent from the camaraderie that had blossomed amid the chaos of war. "Marcus." Raza's voice cut through his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. She approached, her demeanor as resolute as ever, but her eyes betrayed the emotional turmoil beneath the surface. "We need to regroup and assess the situation. The Coalition may have lost this battle, but they won't give up easily." He nodded, trying to shake off the lingering ghosts of the fallen. "You're right. We need to figure out our next steps." The realization hit him like a blast wave. The victory they had achieved might only be temporary. They had united against a common enemy, but unity could fray as quickly as it had formed, especially if they didn't keep the momentum going. As they gathered in the makeshift briefing room, a repurposed cargo bay adorned with hastily hung banners representing the newly allied factions, Marcus sensed the tension thickening the air. Representatives from various factions filled the space, their faces reflecting a mix of skepticism and hope. This was more than a meeting. It was a chance to lay the groundwork for a new era. Raza took her place at the head of the table, commanding attention without uttering a word. When she spoke, her voice resonated with authority. "We've achieved something remarkable today. We fought together, and we won. But the Arboreans are not defeated. We must prepare for their response." A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly, though some faces remained skeptical. Zack, sitting at the edge of the table with a tablet in hand, chimed in. They're probably regrouping right now. I've been scanning the debris, and I picked up a few faint signals. It seems like several ships escaped just before the battle ended. They might already be plotting their next move. How many? Marcus asked, his heart racing at the thought of another assault. Hard to tell with the interference, but I'd estimate a small fleet, perhaps a dozen ships, Zack replied, tapping on the tablet, bringing up a holographic display of the debris field and surrounding space. Raza leaned closer, examining the hologram. We need to find out where they're headed. If they consolidate their forces, it could spell disaster for us. We can't let them regroup. A murmur of concern rippled through the crowd, and Marcus sensed the rising tide of anxiety. We need to act fast, he said, trying to rally their spirits. If they're planning another strike, we can't wait for them to come to us. We should send out reconnaissance ships to track their movements. A representative from the Terran Alliance, a burly man with a thick beard named Commander Harris, spoke up. And if they engage our scouts, we can't afford to lose more ships. Marcus met his gaze steadily. If we don't act now, we risk everything we've built here. Unity has to mean more than just words. It has to translate into decisive action. His voice rose with urgency. If we sit idle, we might lose more than ships. We might lose our chance to end this war once and for all. A wave of murmurs passed through the representatives, and Marcus could see the hesitation in their eyes begin to shift. Hope was a fragile thing, but it could be contagious. Raza seized the moment, her voice cutting through the tension. I propose we split our resources, send out scout ships to track the remnants of the coalition, while also fortifying our defenses here. We can't lose sight of either front. And who will lead the scouts? Another voice piped up from the back. It was Commander Jin, a sharp-eyed leader from the Xynorian faction. Marcus exchanged a glance with Raza. He could sense the weight of their collective responsibility. I will lead the scouting mission, he declared, surprising himself. The words came out before he could rethink them. I need to see what we're up against firsthand. Raza nodded, understanding his need for involvement. Then I'll coordinate the defensive preparations here. Zack, you'll assist Marcus with the scouts. Your tech will be vital for tracking. Zack's eyes lit up, the spark of adventure igniting within him. I can rig up a few of the ships with advanced scanning tech. If there's anything out there, we'll find it. With their roles established, the room began to buzz with a renewed sense of purpose. They may have been weary from battle, but the ember of hope flickered brightly. Marcus felt a rush of determination surge within him, propelling him forward. Together, they could carve out a future, but it would take courage and resolve. Hours later, as Marcus stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, he felt the ship vibrate to life beneath his feet. The familiar hum of the engines, once a source of anxiety, now invigorated him. Raza, standing beside him, monitored the systems with keen eyes. Power levels are good. We're ready to launch, Zack said from the console, fingers dancing over the controls. I've set the ships for long-range scanning. We should be able to detect any incoming signals within 1,000 clicks. Excellent, Marcus replied, his heart pounding with anticipation. This was more than a scouting mission. It was a chance to reclaim the narrative of their struggle. They would not be mere pawns in a galactic chess game. They were players, strategizing their next moves against an opponent that had underestimated them. Engage the engines, Raza commanded. Let's move. The horizon's edge surged forward, cutting through the remnants of the battlefield, past the silent hulks of wreckage. As they cleared the debris field, the vastness of space opened before them, a sea of darkness punctuated by distant stars. Marcus leaned forward, scanning the void, his mind racing with possibilities. Zack, what are our options for communication? He asked, aware that they might need to relay information back to the Alliance. Zack pulled up a schematic on the main screen. I've set up a secure relay network that can send encrypted messages back to the base. It'll allow us to report our findings without giving away our location. But we need to keep it tight. Any slip could alert the coalition. Understood, Marcus replied. Let's proceed cautiously. Our primary goal is to gather intel. Engage stealth mode. The ship quieted as they entered stealth mode, the sensors flickering to life. They glided through the dark expanse, the eerie stillness amplifying the tension in the air. Time seemed to stretch as they traversed the emptiness, each moment steeped in the gravity of their mission. After what felt like hours, Zach's voice broke through the silence. I'm picking up faint signals. It looks like there's a small fleet nearby, approximately 5 clicks ahead. Marcus's heart raced as he exchanged a glance with Raza. Any visual confirmation? Not yet, Zach replied, fingers moving rapidly across the console. But I'm honing in on the frequencies. If they're what I think they are, they're definitely Arborian. Let's get visual, Raza commanded, her eyes gleaming with focus. Zach, can you enhance the sensor readings? With a few swift adjustments, the main screen shifted to show a blurry image of ships moving in formation. A cluster of Arborian vessels, their shapes ominous against the starfield. They were smaller than the battleships they had faced, more akin to corvettes, but their streamlined design still suggested lethality. Looks like they're regrouping, Zach said, his brow furrowing as he analyzed the data. They're in a defensive formation, likely preparing for a counterattack. Good, Marcus said, suppressing the excitement that bubbled within him. We need to assess their numbers and capabilities. Zach, feed the data back to the command. We'll need to formulate a plan based on what we find. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared, piercing the silence. Marcus's heart sank as he turned to the console. What's happening? Multiple contacts detected. They've activated their scanners, Zach shouted, his fingers flying across the controls. They've spotted us. Divert power to the shields, Raza commanded, adrenaline flooding her voice. We need to hold them off long enough to get the intel. The ship trembled as energy coursed through the shields, but Marcus knew they were outnumbered. Zach, can you scramble our signals? We need to confuse them while we still have time. I'm on it, Zach replied, racing against the clock. The ship rocked as enemy fire lit up the darkness. Bright flashes light the void. The vibrations intensified as blasts ricocheted off their shields, sending jolts of energy through the ship. Hold steady, Raza shouted, gripping the console tightly. We can't let them take us down without getting this information. Marcus's hands tightened around the controls, his focus sharpening. Zach, I need those readings now. We can't let them recover before we get the data. I'm trying, Zach shouted, his voice strained as he manipulated the console. Just a few more seconds. Just as the ship lurched again from a near miss, Zach's screen lit up with data. I got it. The fleet is regrouping, but they're also sending out a distress signal. They're alerting the coalition about us. Damn it, Marcus swore, realizing the urgency of their situation. We need to make a decision now. We can't let them send that signal. Let me set up a scrambler, Zach replied, fingers racing across the console. If we can disrupt their communications, we might buy ourselves some time. Do it, Raza urged, her eyes fixed on the approaching ships. We'll need to engage the enemy, but if we can slow them down, it'll give us a fighting chance. The ship shook violently again as more blasts tore through the darkness, their shields holding but flickering dangerously. Ready to scramble in 3, 2, 1, now, Zach shouted, pressing the final command. The ship's systems pulsed, and the energy field enveloping the horizon's edge flickered. For a heartbeat, it felt like the universe held its breath. Then, a wave of static erupted from the enemy fleet, their communications disrupted. Marcus watched as the Arborian ships faltered, their formations breaking apart in confusion. Now's our chance, he called, adrenaline surging through him. We need to pull back and report this back to the Alliance. Raza nodded, her expression fierce. Engage evasive maneuvers. Zach, we need to get out of here. With deft precision, Zach maneuvered the ship, veering sharply to the left as blasts of energy surged through the darkness. The horizon's edge twisted and turned, evading enemy fire as they raced back into the depths of space. "Keep an eye on the scanners," Marcus urged. "We need to make sure we're not followed." As the ships faded into the distance, the horizon's edge surged forward, the void swallowing them whole. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, relief flooding through him. They had escaped, but the knowledge of what lay ahead loomed large. "Prepare for jump," Raza ordered, her voice steady as she steadied the ship's course. "Let's get back to the base and report what we found." As they entered the jump coordinates, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had gathered crucial intelligence about the Arborian Coalition's movements, and though they had narrowly escaped, their mission had not been in vain. "Let's hope the others are ready for what's coming," he murmured, determination solidifying within him. With a flash of light, the horizon's edge propelled into hyperspace, leaving the chaos of the battle behind. They were not merely survivors of a conflict. They were the architects of their own fate, and the fight was far from over. After what felt like moments, the ship jolted back into real space, the familiar sight of the base coming into view. The surrounding ships glimmered in the starlight, and the reassuring hum of the fleet felt like a balm after the chaos of the last few hours. As they docked, Marcus felt a wave of urgency wash over him. They needed to relay their findings, and time was of the essence. "Let's move," Raza said, determination in her eyes. "We need to inform the Council about what we discovered." They made their way through the bustling corridors of the base, the energy palpable as members of the various factions exchanged plans and updates. It was clear that the victory had invigorated everyone. There was hope in the air, but it hung on a delicate thread. When they reached the command center, a circular room buzzing with holographic displays, the council was already in session. Marcus felt the weight of their gazes as he stepped forward with Raza and Zack. "Counselors," Raza began, commanding attention. "We've just returned from a reconnaissance mission. We have crucial intel on the Arborian Coalition." The counselors turned their full attention to them, the atmosphere shifting from casual discussion to immediate concern. "What did you find?" Commander Harris asked, leaning forward. "We encountered a small fleet regrouping in the debris field," Marcus explained, urgency lacing his words. "They were sending out distress signals, alerting the Coalition to our presence. We managed to disrupt their communications, but we can't underestimate them. They are preparing for a counterstrike." "Do we know their numbers?" another counselor interjected, her brows furrowed in concern. "About a dozen ships, primarily corvettes," Zack replied, stepping forward with a display of data. "They were armed and moving in formation, likely readying themselves for another assault." The counselors exchanged glances, the gravity of the situation settling upon them. "This is not a small threat," Commander Jin remarked, his tone grave. "We need to prepare our defenses immediately." Marcus felt the urgency of the moment, but also a flicker of hope. "We need to act quickly, but we also need to unite our forces. This is our chance to solidify our alliances and show the Coalition that we're not backing down." "Agreed," Raza said, stepping forward. "If we can strengthen our coordination and build a solid strategy, we can face them head-on." The council nodded, the collective realization of their potential igniting a fire in their resolve. "Let's put together a plan," Marcus said, his voice steady. "We'll need to prepare our ships, reinforce our defenses, and coordinate our forces to be ready for whatever the Coalition throws at us. We cannot afford to lose momentum." The council sprang into action, formulating strategies, deploying resources, and communicating with the factions. The energy in the room crackled with purpose, the air thick with determination. As the meeting unfolded, Marcus felt a profound sense of connection to his allies, each one driven by a shared goal. They were no longer isolated factions, they were a united front, fighting for their future. "Let's move forward," Raza said, her voice cutting through the hum of activity. "We've come too far to turn back now." Marcus felt the weight of his responsibility, but also the thrill of possibility. They were on the brink of something monumental, and as they stood together, he knew they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The war was far from over, but they were ready to confront it, together. Weeks had passed since the decisive victory and the narrowly avoided ambush in the debris field. The united forces of humanity and their allies had fortified their stronghold, building a defensive line that stretched across a dozen star systems. Every faction contributed ships, technology, and personnel, transforming their base into a fortress capable of withstanding a galactic storm. Yet, Marcus knew that fortifications alone would not guarantee peace. Marcus stood on the command deck of the Horizon's Edge, watching the preparations unfold. Hundreds of ships filled the space around him, each representing a pledge to the alliance they had fought so hard to forge. The atmosphere was tense but charged with anticipation. This was the moment they had all been preparing for. He knew the Arborian coalition would launch one final assault, an attempt to break the alliance and reassert their dominance. "Status report, Zach," Marcus called, eyes scanning the display as data streams from the various sectors scrolled past. "All systems green. Fleet is ready and in position," Zach replied, his hands moving swiftly across the console. "Defensive grids are online. Long-range scanners are picking up movement. Looks like the Arborians are mobilizing." Raza stepped forward, her expression one of grim determination. "The final battle is coming, Marcus. They won't hold anything back this time." Marcus nodded. "Then neither will we." The Arborian fleet appeared on the sensors like a swarm of locusts, filling the holographic map with red markers. It was a terrifying sight. Thousands of ships, ranging from massive war cruisers to nimble attack corvettes. This was the full force of the coalition, the culmination of 8 centuries of war. But this time, humanity was not alone. The Alliance fleet, now numbering over 1,000 vessels, activated their engines and formed a vast wall of defense. Dreadnoughts from the Xynorians, advanced corvettes from the Terran Alliance, and agile fighters from the Viridian assembly took their positions. Marcus felt a surge of pride as the ships of various species, cultures, and histories aligned with precision, moving as one. "All units," Marcus said, opening a channel to the fleet. "This is it. We stand together as a united force, not just against the Arborian coalition, but for a future beyond war. We have one shot at this, let's make it count." Cheers and acknowledgments filled the comms channel, a resounding chorus of solidarity. The enemy fleet loomed ever closer, their dark hulls blotting out the starlight. "Engage shields and weapons," Raza ordered, her tone resolute. "All ships, prepare for impact." The void lit up as both sides unleashed their firepower. Beams of energy and projectiles streaked through space, creating a chaotic web of destruction. The Horizon's Edge shuddered as it maneuvered between incoming fire, returning blasts of its own. All around, ships danced a deadly ballet, their weapons flashing like lightning. Marcus felt the deck vibrate beneath him as the Horizon's Edge dove and weaved, evading enemy fire while retaliating with pinpoint accuracy. On every screen, the data poured in. Ships lost, targets destroyed, damage reports from every corner of the fleet. The Arborians fought with a ferocity born of desperation, knowing this was their last stand. For every ship that fell, 3 more took its place. But the Alliance held strong, their unity turning the tide. The Arborian ranks began to thin, their formations breaking as the intensity of the Alliance's assault pushed them back. "This is it, Marcus," Raza said, her eyes locked on the enemy flagship, a massive vessel that anchored the Arborian formation. "If we take out their command ship, it's over." "Targeting systems locked," Zach confirmed, his fingers flying over the controls. "All power to the main cannons." The Horizon's Edge charged forward, leading a vanguard of ships. A coordinated barrage of fire erupted from their cannons, streaking toward the Arborian flagship. It shuddered under the impact, but its shields held. The flagship retaliated, sending out waves of energy blasts that rocked the Alliance's ships. "Keep firing," Marcus shouted, his voice carrying the determination of the entire fleet. "We can't give them any room." More Alliance ships joined the assault, focusing their fire on the enemy flagship. Under the relentless barrage, its shields flickered, then failed. The hull split open, a cascade of explosions tearing through the vessel as its reactors detonated. A cheer erupted across the comms as the flagship shattered, the explosion sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. As the Arborian flagship fell, their fleet lost cohesion. Without their central command, the remaining ships faltered, their organized assault collapsing into disarray. The Alliance pressed their advantage, methodically picking off the remnants. One by one, the red markers on the holographic display vanished, until only the Alliance's ships remained. "We did it," Raza said, the disbelief in her voice turning to relief. "The Arborians are in full retreat." Marcus exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "All ships, hold position, maintain defensive perimeter, and begin salvage operations." His voice carried the finality of victory. "We've won." The cheers that filled the comms were deafening. The war was over.